Josh, you come at it from a little different perspective.
Yeah.
You're a director and a filmmaker. Is Hollywood liberal or no?
Well, I'm a documentary filmmaker, so I'm not really part of that Hollywood crowd. I mean, the documentary branch of the world, kind of is a journalistic branch that is constantly kind of invading both the television world and the film world. But we come from, I think, a tradition of storytelling, but also of journalism. And I have to say, as a journalist, I am deeply dismayed, I'm angry, and I'm disgusted with the actions of the mainstream media over the last 24 hours.
Yeah.
What is this? A banana republic? I mean, you don't announce the results of the election the night before the election because you have a series of secret conversations with an elite group of, superdelegates, whatever that means, who are designed to circumvent a populist insurgency. What we have on our hands right now is a populist insurgency in the state of California. And we've been going up and down the state campaigning. And that's not journalism. That's voter suppression and that's manipulation. And, for all the talk right now of the mainstream media being in the tank for Hillary and also basically overemphasizing the Trump campaign, we see these results. We know that Hillary Clinton has had vastly more time on the mainstream media than Bernie Sanders does. And when we go out and canvass, because we do go out and canvass quite a lot, knock on doors and pound the pavement, get a sense of where the electorate's at, people do not know enough about Bernie Sanders. And the only thing I can say is, and they also don't know enough about Hillary Clinton, to be honest. But there's a brand loyalty thing that happens. People know about the Clinton administration, and there's a tendency to go in that direction. And when you don't know about the other person's position, but when you go out there and you say Hillary Clinton's pro-fracking, Hillary Clinton's climate change plan involves 300 new frack gas power plants that will last 30 to 40 more years, 2 million new fracking wells, thousands of miles of pipelines. When you go out there and say Bernie Sanders is for public education all the way up through college, people start to understand, oh, wow, I can't vote for Hillary Clinton. I got to vote for Bernie Sanders. And part of that's the fault of the media, being obsessed with this, kind of celebrity cycle of politicians that doesn't actually delve into the issues. So this is part of the campaign I think that both of us are on to say, look, you got to get out there and know about these issues. But for the media to come out the night before the election, and when you're on the ground doing what we're doing and battling, and you're watching citizens battling so hard, going to campaign offices and people spending their whole week there and weekends there and every waking moment living and breathing this election. And then you come in. It's such a shame because the truth of the matter is we are never going to know what the real result would have been had they not done this. On both sides.
So
on both
Josh,
sides.
I have a question for you then on that score. I was all over the country covering this election for a now defunct network for the purpose of this conversation we'll call Al Jazeera America. And
I remember that network.
I was with some of the AP reporters who were actually going over the superdelegate lists. And we were in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. They were going over superdelegate lists. And one of these people was charged with calling Wisconsin superdelegates to poll them. And the Wisconsin superdelegates, some of them were committed, some of them were not yet committed and didn't commit the night I was there. And my question to you is this, as a journalist, as a documentarian, and anybody can answer this question really, but when you have the information and you're the AP, Puerto Rico comes in, you call up, you get the information, you know that there are these untapped superdelegates, you call them in the purest sense, and they say, yeah, now I'm with Hillary Clinton. Now I'm with Hillary Clinton. Now I'm with Hillary Clinton. You say, well, the election's tomorrow. Do I sit on it? Do I go? What do you think the media?
Oh, absolutely. You sit on it when you're the night before the biggest presidential primary in the entire contest, without a doubt. Because you have to know, as a journalist, what the implication is of the information that you are putting out there. And editorial staffs know that.
I should also say,
editorial staffs
you're
know
immersed in this stuff. And
but to be honest, the timing of this is so suspicious.
No. I'm not defending. I'm really asking a question. I'm saying you're immersed in this. A lot has people. And that doesn't make them right.
I don't believe it for a second.
No, you haven't let me ask the question. You haven't let me ask the question. You haven't let me ask the question. The question has nothing to do with this. Right. A lot of people don't think that this was the most important primary. A lot of people who do what I did, or still do it because I don't, that are out there don't think that this is the most important primary today. They think that the die had already been cast. That being said, I don't know that they're right. I don't take a position on that. But so you're saying, though, and I'm really asking this informatively, if you know that information, it's incumbent upon them to sit on that information and wait another day because of this.
I don't think that some 11th hour news break happened at 8 p.m. last night. I really don't. I think if they were sitting on this information, I think they already were sitting on it. You know what I'm saying? I think they were sitting on it since Monday or since the week before. When did they finish their reporting? When did they finish their poll of superdelegates?
We don't know. We don't even know who there's a fault there too because we don't know who the superdelegates are. Yeah, there's no transparency here. And we don't even know if it's some reporter sitting in Milwaukee calling somebody in Wisconsin and then calling the AP bureau in D.C. and saying this person moved over.
The truth of the matter is you got to reveal your sources. And in this case, there's so much about this. Look, let me point out one other issue that I have with mainstream media. The State Department will not verify an election, United States State Department, in other countries, if exit polls and actual voting data come in more than 2% off of each other. In this whole election, we are seeing 10%, 12%, in New York, 16% gap between what the exit polls said and what the actual vote came in as.
And that came out of Ohio in 2004.
That's a question that must be asked, or else you're not doing your job as a journalist. Yeah. And I'm asking it right now. I'm asking the question: why in New York State, when I walked off the radio, I was on a radio interview the night of the New York State primary, and it was 48-52, Clinton leading in the exit polls.
52-48.
52-48. Yeah, Clinton leading, 4% gap, and then all of a sudden the vote comes in, and it's a 16-point gap. What happened there? The State Department of the United States, which is ironic, right? Because the Secretary of State, Hillary Clinton, would not certify that election because there is the chances of that discrepancy happening are hundreds of thousands.
That's funny that you mentioned that, Josh, because that's the one thing I keep coming back to. How come nobody ever did an analysis of that? I always found that surprising.
The other way.
Well, there are people doing it.
No, but Michigan is more understandable, not because Bernie Sanders won, but because Bernie Sanders does better in open primaries. And so his enthusiasm of his base show up on that day.
Right, but you have to blanket.
And Michael, there's a difference between registered voters and likely voters. They poll registered voters, but more voters show up than the regular registered voters that vote in prior election because of the enthusiasm of Sanders. So that's a little bit more logical, but no one ever said, wait a minute, the exit polling in New York was so off.
So off.
Why? Maybe, like, if, for example, if
and
it
also they're not really
reverse,
doing exit polls tonight in California.
Well, that's the other thing that just happened. No exit polls. So we just do away with the exit polls. But
if the exit polls are convenient.
But the mainstream media can make up terms whenever they want to. So what the term that they just made up was, we're going to adjust the exit polls if they're off the real vote count. What does that mean?
That's not. Yeah, that's madness.
Because that's fudging the results.
For example,
that's fudging the results. They should come out and say, we're fudging the results of the exit polls tonight
because
as the real vote comes
seriously,
in.
I mean, I've covered elections all across the world. I'm from the safe confines of this LA studio, don't get me wrong. But when I see an election, for example, in Turkey, and Erdogan says, oh, the exit polling was off by 12 points, so we have adjusted the exit polling. I go, I don't think so, right? And so, but when we do it in New York, why is that like, oh yeah, of course, we adjusted the exit polling, we're done with it. Okay, so that's one part of it. But back to AP for a second. So to answer Michael's question from my perspective, if I'm the Associated Press, I don't know about sitting on the story, but I do know that I would ask at least two more questions. One is, hey, you just switched from not declaring who you're going to vote for as a superdelegate to voting for Hillary Clinton. Did the Clinton campaign call you at all? I mean, that's a fair question, right? That would be an interesting question. If the Clinton campaign called however many switched in that time period between Puerto Rico and when AP called the election, let's say the number was 10. By the way, that's going to be my second question. How many was it and who were they, right? Did you ask all of them? Did the Clinton campaign call you in the meanwhile? Did they want you to come out today as opposed to after the voting in California? Now, if you're a real journalist, that would be a really interesting question because you might want to put in your AP story, 10 superdelegates switched today, putting Hillary Clinton over our perceived threshold, but we found out all 10 were called by the Clinton campaign and asked to come out today before the voting. Yeah. See, that would be an interesting story. And just to finish the thought, Josh, the second question is, what do you mean anonymous sources? You have anonymous sources if it's a whistleblower. You don't have anonymous sources if it's a superdelegate that is a Democratic Party establishment person. And you can't count them anonymously. If you're going to count them and say, trust me, they're going to vote for Hillary Clinton, you have to tell us who they are. Right. You can't say, oh, no, I'm not going to tell you who they are. Just take my word for it. This is not an anonymous situation.
not just the night before. That should happen throughout the process.
Definitely. Give me a list of the damn superdelegates. It's insane that we don't have the people who have raised their hands and say they're for Hillary Clinton. If you're going to count them, then and you're going to raise your hand saying, I'm definitely voting for Hillary Clinton, and that's why the Associated Press is counting me, then raise your frickin' hand. Who are you?
Yeah. I mean, but honestly, I've been asked by the Sanders campaign to call superdelegates. Of course. They all got calls. I don't know if you've been asked to do that.
I haven't been asked to call, but when I am approached or I'm in the same room or a company of a superdelegate, it is a conversation that we have.
Well, I've been asked to call them, and we know who they are, and we know what issues they care about. And I talked to one in California. I'm not going to say her name. I don't actually, to be honest, can't remember it. Because we've been doing so many things. But her first name was Rachel. But she said to me, look, I'm not going to declare until after California votes. Because I might be with you, I might not be with you. I hear your issues, I hear this. I very much hear you on fracking, and that's an extremely important issue to me. But I want California to vote without my influence. Now that was an incredibly decent moment. And we had this long conversation about environmentalism, and she was an environmentalist for 30 years, and we talked about all the things, all the battles she fought. She had seen the films and been very, very sympathetic, but she said, still, look, this is democracy.
Yeah.
We let the people vote. And they got to know over there at the editorial staff of the New York Times that what they're doing is actually discouraging people on both sides from voting.
I mean, in my experience in the last 24 hours, I've had 5 phone calls from friends saying, oh, well, should I even go vote today? Yeah. Is that something I should still engage in? Because I read yesterday A, B, C, and D. And a lot of my friends aren't political. A lot of my friends don't know about politics.
We were having that discussion earlier. Who does it benefit? Who does it hurt? It kind of hurts everybody.
And that, to me, that's the form of voter suppression. Because all of a sudden, you have people who were going to go to the polls to vote, but now they've been fed this narrative, and they don't know whether to believe it or not. And if people don't have time in their lives, or willing to take the time in their lives to do their own research, to investigate further, because they're just reading mainstream media, then you're disenfranchising people out of their vote. You're taking away the narrative that they had before.
2 Clinton voters who were so angry last night about this, just furious about it, because they thought this is going to undo Hillary Clinton today. That her supporters are not going to come out. A lot of them probably voted earlier than Bernie voters.
Ultimately, it's not up to the media to tell us what's going on.
But that's why I asked the question: what do you do if, in fact, you came by it in the way that they've been coming by it, and the diligent reporting they've been doing, and I don't know the answer to it. I don't know that I would sit on it if I had it.
I think transparency, but you made a great point. Like, if you're not going to, whether or not we agree or disagree on whether they sit on it, just be transparent. Talk about who those people were. Don't come out and say it was anonymous. I think you made a really great point. I think that would have changed the dialogue today. But then
you're not sitting on it if you're revealing who it was who changed it, which is fine.
I'm saying if you do take the action to reveal that information, be transparent.
That should happen.
And to Shailene's point, just real quick, I had an Uber driver from a couple months ago who said, "Oh, I love Bernie Sanders, but too bad the race is already over." And I was like,
"Oh, I've talked to so many people who say that."
Right, and I said, "No, but she thought it was literally over." And I said,
because Iowa voted.
Right, and she was California. And I said, California votes months from now. And at that time, we were in the heat of the race. It was unclear who was going to win. He had gone on a big run at that point. And I'm like, where in the world did you get the idea that the race is over? She's like, I watch TV.
Yeah,
exactly. And so if you've been counting the superdelegates all along as if they have voted.
Maybe she watched Al Jazeera. We went off the air. She's like, well, that was it.
The race is over.
That was the cookie